Are we waiting for anyone? Or?
No. Job.
Asher.
He has to go for his driving license, I think so. And Bas is still in Baltimore.
All right.
And Mr. Kamp.
This is for me, pal.
Yeah, so. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And Mr. Kamp, he is not well.
Oh.
And Ben Stebe has to work. So
we're ready to go. Okay. So let's learn.
Yeah, yes. I'll close the door.
Why not learn?
Yeah, why not?
Never hurts. What are we going to miss out? Okay. Boira, gentlemen. We were talking about Boira quite a few weeks ago. The last time we learned together was at least 2.5 months ago, maybe. Quite a while. Then I cancelled.
You want to know the date?
No, it's right. It was a while ago. Let's finish off talking about Boira. Let's cover some more topics of Boira now. Remember, I'll just remind you what we spoke about until now. We spoke about the malacha of separating on Shabbos, Boira, and we clarified that in order for Boira to be allowed, there has to be 3 conditions. 3 conditions together simultaneously apply in order to allow one to do Boira. The first condition is that one separates the good from the bad and not the bad from the good. So we said it's not objectively good or bad. It's a subjective kind of classification of good and bad. The thing that you want is taken from the thing that you don't want. So if you were to have chicken mixed with bones, for example, then the chicken is taken from the bone and not that the bone is taken from the chicken. That was the first rule, the first condition necessary to allow Boira. We spoke a little bit more about that last time. We did go into that, what's called the good and what's called the bad. We spoke about it. The second condition to allow Boira is that the instrument, that the method of doing the separation is using one's hand and not an instrument. So actually the halacha defines instrument in sort of 3 levels. The halacha says that there are instruments that are miyuchad, that are designated, so to speak, for Boira. An instrument, boireir, separating, sorting, separating, orer in Portuguese.
Sorry.
Yeah. Instruments of separation. The highest level of an implement for separation is the sieve. A sieve, gentlemen, that beteken een sieve.
Schudden? 7. Ah, the mill.
Yeah. A sieve. What does the sieve do? You put everything on top, and it literally sorts the good from the bad, the big pieces from the small pieces. Yeah. If you have sieve flour gran, and the stones stay at the top, or the bigger pieces, the impurities, and the soft, finer flour goes through. That's a sieve. A sieve is a utensil that is the highest, so to speak, level of utensils as far as Boira is concerned. To use a sieve on Shabbos would be an Issa d'Oraisa. You'd be doing Boira with a sieve. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Yeah? You have done already. You can ask another one.
What if you use the sieve just to, as je meel, put flour in it, de klontjes eruit. Ja, hoe heet dat in goed Nederlands? In Engels? When you did this, the flour is sometimes stick together.
Right. So you want.
But then it's not the good from the bad.
You want it all to go through. You just want it
all to go through. So then you use it only to separate the.
It's not even to separate. You're using it just to help to crush it up a little bit. In other words, the force of pushing it through. It's crushing.
With the mortar.
Exactly. The force of pushing it through the sieve holes will break the things apart, but you're not separating good or bad. So it's a very good question. In that instance, you couldn't have done the act of boira, because despite the use of a sieve, you're not actually separating. But it would be comparable
because it's already separated.
It's already separated, right? However, the
maybe it's muktzeh, but
that's what I say. Right. So in terms of boira, it's not boira. In other words, any malacha, however you would do it, if you were to use I don't know, a bit different example. If you were to use an instrument to do an instrument that's usually used for one malacha, and you use it, let's take the example and say something ridiculous. Let's say
on this break.
Yeah, let's say you took a sieve. Right. Let's say you took a sieve and you used the sieve to wear as a hat. Yeah. So you're not doing boira.
Yeah,
right. Now, obviously, that's obvious, yeah.
Just water it.
Just water it, right. However, to use a meshameres, the halacha says, to use a sieve, just generally, is uvdin dechoil. Like you say, muksa, it's uvdin dechoil. Uvdin dechoil, it's Aramaic. Uvdin dechol. Uvdin dechol is where in certain instruments or utensils, even if they're not, uvdin dechol, certain instruments or utensils that are designated for weekday activities are rabbinically forbidden to use at all generally, even where it would be permitted. An equivalent case would be that there is another malacha, the next malacha after boira, which is toichan, which is grinding. A grinding or crushing, cutting things into very small pieces is called toichan. Now the halacha says that technically speaking, there is only a concern of toichan with kedulei karka, with things that grow from the ground. That means that to grind wheat, for example, is toichan. To crush, if you were to crush garlic, it would be toichan, and so on and so forth. But with regard to food items that do not grow from the ground, such as cheese, to grind cheese, or an egg, grind egg, exactly, is not min ha-Torah forbidden because of toichan, because the halacha is ein toichan ela b'gedulei karka. The law, the malacha of toichan only applies with products that grew from the ground. Nonetheless, the halacha says that to use a grater, a cheese grater, we call it in the Mishnah Berurah, in the Ramah calls it in Yiddish a riv eisen. In Old Yiddish, the Rivosh uses that word. A grater, a rasp. A rasp. To use a rasp, obviously not an electric rasp, but a regular rasp. To grate cheese, let's say you get cheese, a block of cheese, and you rub it along your rasp, and you grate cheese, is still forbidden, despite the fact that cheese is not gedulei karka, and therefore, generally speaking, cheese, there's no problem of grating it, but the usage of the rasp in the first place is uvdin dechoil, because the rasp, the grater, is an instrument that would generally be used for weekday activities. So it's rabbinically forbidden to use such an instrument. So the
What about a knife?
With regard to toichan, regard to crushing,
knife is also something you use during the week.
Absolutely.
So on Shabbat, no knives.
And a table. And clothes. But you're absolutely right. If we want to analyze the parameters of uvdin dechoil, we have to broaden the concept. When we say uvdin dechoil means an instrument that's used for weekday activity, absolutely right. There's many instruments. Cups also use weekday activity. Halacha specifically means an instrument that's used to assist and facilitate industrialized weekday activity. Now, I'm using those words despite the fact that the word industrialized doesn't appear in the Shulchan Aruch, but that's what seems to come out from a survey of all the places where we use this expression uvdin dechoil. It seems to be related, not directly related, but related to the concept of industrialized work. In other words, a regular knife is as much, if not more, used for localized cutting, such as on your plate or in the kitchen, as it might be for industrialized cutting. In fact, you probably wouldn't use a regular knife, if you wanted to cut loads and loads and loads of vegetables in one go. You might have an instrument that helps do it quicker. So nowadays we have, of course, these food processor machines. But even if you didn't use a food processor machine, you could be using like we said, some kind of like tool that cuts faster, like a mechanism for cutting, a slicing blade. Exactly, an ayasnaya, and so on and so forth. So there's a difference. Halacha makes a difference between regular instruments that are used not specifically for like a more like broader industrialized activity, but just localized activity. They are not often choil, and instruments that are associated with industrialized activity. The point is that the grater and things like that are used because they facilitate cutting in a much easier and more convenient way, allow you to cut more quicker. That's the point. It's a tool.
Het kaassnijder heb je ook.
De kaasschaaf is een mes.
Yeah, it's a kind of knife. There's a discussion about this. We'll get there. There is,
Eiersnijder ook is een mes.
yeah, they're all right. And there is, Moshe Feinstein wants to say, for example, that these eiersnijders, it's just really, it's 5 knife blades. It's just a bit quicker. It's not really industrialized cutting. Yeah. And even still, we could we can broaden the categorization, the classification of Uvdin Chol even further. And we could also say, if we look around, that it seems to be things that are related not just to industrialized activity, but have a connection to a malacha. In other words, and this is also important, cutting an egg is not a malacha. It wasn't. There's no malacha. It's not grinding and it's not separating. So if you were to make an instrument, an eiersnijder, that's just 5 little knives that cuts the egg, then you're industrializing the process of something that in the first place is not connected to a malacha. And of course, the eiersnijder is not electric. So in other words, why would that be a problem? But with the grater, because the cheese grater was designed to also facilitate grinding of vegetables and products that are included in the melacha of toichan. So there's a connection. There's not just a symbolic connection. There's a vivid connection between the grind, the rasp, and things that are not allowed to be ground. So now the halacha says, okay, if that's the case, if this is an instrument that's used to grind, in other words, to cut things into small pieces, just because you're using it for cheese, which isn't something that is included in the melacha of toichan, it doesn't matter. Rabbinically, we're going to forbid the general use of this rasp because it's associated with the industrialized activity of toichan, of the melacha of grinding. And a knife, as opposed to a knife which isn't, despite the fact that you could use a knife to cut onion into very small pieces, which is toichan, which would be toichan, because toichan grinding is with gedule karaka, things that grow from the ground, you are not allowed to cut them into small pieces. But because the knife is not associated specifically with that, and it's not used to facilitate the industrialized process of cutting vegetables, it could just be used just simply to cut in a regular way. So they didn't see fit to make this law, this enactment of Uvdin Dechoil with regard to a regular knife. Going back to your sieve, the sieve is comparable then very much to the rasp, because the sieve is absolutely an instrument that is used to facilitate boira, to facilitate 2 melachas, boira, which is separating, and marakid, which is sifting, which is its own melacha. So to take a sieve and use it not for sifting, not for separating good and bad, but generally for sifting, or at least just to use it as sort of a banging tool, might very well be included, or is definitely included, in the prohibition of using a sieve rabbinically, because the sieve becomes a rabbinically prohibited item to use in the normative manner, as in the manner where you allow things to go through the holes. And we have various instances of that in halacha, where you can't just use a meshameres even for things that aren't sieving.
What's the conclusion about the eiersnijder? We have an eiersnijder, we never use it, but you take it and the egg is cut in 6 or 7 pieces, and it can only be used for eggs.
Right.
Nee. Je gebruikt het voor tomaten, ik gebruik het voor...
Dan moet je de tomaten pels hebben.
Ja, maar eieren ook hoor.
Ja, dat ook, ja.
Ja, maar ik gebruik hem ook, zou ik je eerlijk zeggen, voor champignon.
Ja.
Ja, maar dat kan wel.
Nee, dat is heel makkelijk. Dat is een mooie plakje.
Maar op Shabbos kun je...
Kijk, een champignon groeit op de grond. Dus daar heb ik een probleem. Ja?
Ja.
Ik heb niet een andere toepassing voor eiersnijder.
Nou ja,
En sowieso, we gebruiken niet, want Silvia vindt veel te dunne plakjes.
Dat is wat anders.
Snijdt
oké.
hij liever met een mes.
Oké, maar je hebt mooie dunne plakjes, hè. En een eiersnijer, dat gaat helaas. Maar ik gebruik hem dus inderdaad. Soms gebruik ik een eiersnijer ook. Inderdaad, voor
As far as I remember, you can use an egg cutter, an eiersnede on Shabbos.
Toledano,
Van de
die schrijft heel expliciet: een eiersnijer mag.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, you can use it. Yeah, I think Ramosh Feinstein explicitly
Maar
says you can use
je
it.
kan een eiersnijer dus ook gebruiken. En dan krijg je wel een probleem voor champignons.
He says you can't use it for mushrooms.
No, because a mushroom is growing from the
It's
ground.
gedulli karaka.
Yeah.
Yeah, but despite that, you don't cut it into small pieces.
Yeah.
It's cut into thin pieces, but not small pieces.
Yeah.
Toastan has to be like small pieces. Imagine use a knife to cut.
Maar als ik hem daarna dwars zet.
It's just thin pieces. It's not small. It's one like we call it. Well, we'll learn Toich. We'll talk about it. It's one-dimensionally thin. That means that it's not really nothing's one dimension. But when you have a cut something, you can cut it thin, small. Something small could be cut very. Imagine you take a cucumber and you slice it very thin. So it's long but thin.
Maar in blokjes wordt het dan moeilijker.
In blocks, if you cut something into very small blocks, then on both sides it's small. If you cut an onion, if you dice an onion into small pieces, it's small on both sides. So there is a big discussion in the halachic authorities if it's called grinding or cutting, if you cut something very thin but long.
Wanneer is grinding?
When would grinding be grinding?
Yeah.
If it would be, according to this idea, if it would be on all sides small.
And what's small?
That's a good question. That's a good. Small is a good question.
For you, small, maybe.
That's a very good question.
Als ik kortzichtig ben, hoe zeg je?
Yeah, that's a very good question. That's a very valid question. What is small? The Shulchan Aruch himself, the Beis Yosef himself, refers to small as dak ma'oid or whatever, very dak, and he doesn't say. He says a bit small is the smallest that you would normally cut this item, a bit, and so you should cut it a bit bigger than small. In other words, if you were to dice an onion, when you buy the herring, and the onions have been cut very small. When you buy herring with onions,
small. Die zijn niet klein.
right? But what's the smallest commercialized size that onions are cut? That anyone cuts onions. What's the smallest size that anyone cuts onions?
1,5 bij 1,5 millimeter.
Do you think so? Who does that? Who cuts so small? You, yeah. How do you do it so small?
By hand.
But you use a knife for that?
Yeah.
And it's smaller than the pieces that come with the herring?
Yeah, much smaller.
Okay. Very good.
By hand.
Okay, that's by hand.
No, but it's fair enough. You're saying you would cut it very, very small. You can use
for a salad or things like that. Not for a salad, but for cooking. You need something very small.
Sometimes what people do is not with a knife so much, but they use it's like a meshy blade. It's like it's on the grater.
Yeah.
It's like a very, very fine.
Okay.
And then they rub the onion through that, and it breaks the onion just into like a mush, like a pulp. Yeah. They use that if they want to do that. If they want to spread the taste of onion through the food. But let's assume that onions normally are cut sort of this big. Yeah. Then
2 by 2 millimeter.
Yeah, 3 millimeters, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. No, you think so? I'm not the biggest cooking expert.
Ik ook niet.
How small do you cut them?
Not so small.
Not so small. It takes a lot more effort to cut them very small.
Ja. Als ik een ui in 2 snij, is het nog het makkelijkst.
Right, exactly. So small would be according to the Beis Yosef, you would have to cut it a bit bigger than small. Because whatever's considered small by people, a bit bigger than that. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, a bit bigger than small.
A bit bigger than what we define as very small. That's fine. In other words,
no definition.
There is because it's relative. There is no there's no objective definition. It's relative. In other words, the onion is effective exactly like you said, because an onion is a sharp food, it's strong.
Yeah.
So you don't want to eat generally in bigger pieces unless you're cooking it. You don't eat in
Nou,
big
neem een Spaans pepertje.
Right. You want to put the onion. What is?
Spaans pepertje.
What does that mean?
Sommigen kunnen het wel
Hij
eten.
zegt,
What does fast paper mean?
Spaans pepertje, hoe heet dat?
Pepper,
the
red pepper. The
Red
red
pepper.
pepper.
Right.
Right, the red
You,
pepper.
but you
want
cut
it
them
small.
very fine,
Right. Why do you cut
except for separating the
the
seeds
pips,
from
the
out
seeds?
of it.
Yeah. But
But
why
that's
do you
not
want to
the
cut them?
problem.
Why do you want to cut them small? Because it's too strong in big pieces, and you want to be able to
Madame
distribute.
Jeannette.
Yeah, and you want to be able to distribute the taste around the salad or the food, whatever it is. So the idea of cutting the onion or the pepper small is that in a smaller function, it serves its purpose. In other words, why would you? We're not really learning the Loch of Teich, we're learning Boiron. If we go there, why would you grind wheat? Why do you grind wheat? Because in order to use the wheat to make bread, you want it to be small. Why would you grind salt? So that it serves a function that it can be distributed and spread taste around the salad.
Salt dissolves.
Right, fine. But and the point is, you break things into smaller things, so that especially when they're sharp, so that the taste gets distributed more evenly, and it's not so strong in one go. A carrot, for example, you don't cut carrots. You don't need to cut carrots into tiny pieces. I mean, Israeli salads cut things into small pieces, but the onion is cut into small pieces. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a malacha of toichan with carrots as well. I'm not excluding carrots. I'm just saying that the point of cutting something small is in order to be able to minimize the sharpness of the taste and distribute the taste evenly. So whatever would be the desired smallness, if you would do it a little bit bigger, that would be considered not so small. So it is very much, it's not defined, it's not objectively defined, it is very broad, it's very vague. The point is to not cut it in the way in which you would normally say this is small.
At least, more than one letter. Yeah?
Yeah.
So therefore, the definition is quite clear. When you write when you write half a letter, that's not writing.
Right.
So it's very difficult to. Okay. Anyhow,
let me ask you a question then. I'll throw this one back at you. What happens when you draw a question mark?
Yeah.
Vraagteken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it considered one letter or two letters?
It's one. That's the point.
No. Okay.
Two.
Let's ignore the point for a second.
Oh no, not with the point.
No, even without the point.
Even.
You make the symbol of a question mark. Is it one letter or two letters?
Yeah.
What do you think? One or two? I mean, Torah, don't get me wrong. It's forbidden both to write one letter or two letters. Absolutely. The Torah, the halacha, the Torah says two letters.
Two letters is the smallest word.
Two letters is
right.
Right.
In Hazinu, you say Al Hashem.
Ha is one word. Hey is one letter.
Yeah.
And Rashi says in Parashas. Rashi says elsewhere in Parashas. Chukas.
Yeah.
There's a Rashi in Parashas Chukas who says that the letter ayin also is one word, is a shoresh. Ayin. Onion. Yeah, I don't know how you say it. Onion.
Ashkenazi.
Nayin is one letter. Yeah. Ea ha'avorim, he says. Ea ha'avorim, he says that the E and A is an Ea ha'avorim, the ruins of the Avorim, not Ea as in islands with an aleph, Ea with an ayin, which means ruins. Yeah, he says it's ayin is one letter. Somewhere there's Rashi says ayin is a shirish. So hey and ayin, yeah, okay, fair enough. But the Gemara says, like you said before, the Gemara says that the smallest word, so to speak, is two letters, because in order to make words, you need to put letters together. So the smallest word is two letters. Even the letter ayin and the letter hey, which are a shirish, are meaningless of their own, so to speak. They're always connected. Yeah. They're always an article connected to something else.
But in English,
so.
Exactly,
absolutely. In English, it's different. Absolutely, in English, it's different. And in Lashon HaKodesh, it's two. So the Gemara says. So there's an opinion in the Gemara of Yossi who says that Rosham is chayav. Rosham means not just writing letters, but Rosham means making the symbol. Making a symbol is also chayav because, for example, the question mark, it serves its own purpose on its own. It's a definable concept. A number, for example, the number 1 or the number 2. It doesn't need to be connected to something else. A number is its own is its own purpose.
Something
So
on its own, yeah.
so even within the malacha of writing, of Kislev, when we analyze sort of the malacha and what it is and what the parameters are, you'll find that the detail is actually rather nuanced. There could be a discussion about what the parameter is, when is it doraisa, when is it drop on. So I agree that this Toichan, when we learn Toichan, we'll try and make it more clear. But sometimes malachas have sort of a broad spectrum of possibilities, and the halacha will have to locate what's yes and what's not.
I think it also depends on in what cultural surrounding you're living in.
Yeah, that could be. In terms of, let's say, small, it could very well be that small is defined differently in different places.
For example, in the Far East, it would be something cut very small. It's into very small pieces. It's much more different. It's much different from what's considered small in Western.
Yeah, that might very well be. In some malachas, there might be in certain malachas a kind of a possibility of ambiguity.
Yeah,
there could very well be. Yeah. The point is to avoid the air of ambiguity, so you're not doing something forbidden. But when we learn Toichan, we'll see there are other opinions. Yeah, but there are other opinions. I don't want to upset you, but there's a machlokes between the Mechaba and the Ramah, the Shulchan Aruch of the Beis Yosef and the Sfadim Ashkenazim in this regard to this small. So there's a lot going on there. We'll get there. We'll learn about it as Hashem. So let's talk about this. So that was the sieve. We went off to the point from the sieve. So we know now that a sieve, to use a sieve to do boira, is the highest level, so to speak, of separating with an instrument. So even if you would separate the good from the bad, and even if you would do it close to the time that you need to eat it, so the other two conditions have been fulfilled, nonetheless, you can't use a sieve. There's certain instruments that are not designated specifically for separating, but assist separating. For example, the Mishnah says a funnel. A funnel is a cone-shaped. A cone is a peon.
Yeah,
shaped peon. All right. It's a peon-shaped object with a little spout at the bottom. You use it sometimes to pour things. Right. Yeah. A funnel. So the funnel, you would use a funnel. Let's say you wanted to pour from a big bottle into a small bottle, then you would put a funnel inside. Sometimes you pour from a big barrel into something and you don't want it to spill everywhere. And then you pour down the funnel into the bottle. You understand?
Yeah.
The fleser. Yeah? From van een grote fleser, naar een kleine. Yeah? In the chemist. Yeah.
Ja, maar je leert in de apotheek leer je het ook zo doen, zonder het recht.
Oké.
Gebruik thuis ook nooit het recht.
Right.
Oké.
Jij hebt beroep.
Get the hang of it. Right. So a funnel is not specifically an instrument that is made for separating. It's not like a sieve. However, you could do a great job. Apparently, they used to in the times of the Mishnah and earlier times. Let's say they had legumes,
Yes,
bona, that are mixed with their shell. Yeah, one second. Right. One second. You would use a sieve, but I'm talking about when you want to use something, you have another way. There's another possibility. The sieve is the best way. That's why the sieve is designed for that. You have the beans and it has the little shells floating around. So what they would do is they'd get a funnel. Probably today we wouldn't know how to do it because we're not used to it. But what they do, they get a funnel and they put it all in, and then they shake. I don't do it as liquid in, but they would sort of jog it around like this.
Yeah.
And what happens is the hard pieces, the bigger pieces, fall because they're heavy, and the lighter pieces sort of make their way to the top of the pile. So the skins, the shells, the soft skin makes its way. So you can use a funnel like this. Whenever you manipulate, rotate it, and the what's it called? The shell, the bean comes out, and the shells float up. You understand?
Nou ja, eigenlijk is het idee wat je dus ook doet met kaf van koren scheiden. Waarbij je dus inderdaad...
Ja, gaat.
Ja.
Je doet met de NOx in hij zegt, hoe zeg je dat? Ik vraag het loopt die som die zo, weet je?
Ja, in de dash, in de thresh.
Dat is ook het
Yeah, Zoira, winnowing. You do
Yeah.
the same thing. Yeah, you sort of you push the heavy things, you throw it in the wind.
Yeah.
Zoira, it's called. You throw it in the wind, and the heavy things go down.
Graankorrels blijven achter. Dat
Right.
kaf,
Ja, kaf.
Right. The chaff goes into the air, and exactly.
Maar dit is
But here it's using an instrument. It's using this sieve, using this funnel. So now the funnel is a second level, let's call it. It's not forbidden min Torah. It wouldn't be forbidden according to Torah law because it's not designed specifically for sieving, but you're using an instrument to assist sieving in a way that's better than doing it by hand, which is of course very difficult to get the beans and pluck out everything. Takes a long time. So this is an instrument that's not meyuchad. That means it's not designated for sieving, but it helps the sieving purpose. Then it would be drabonon. And the third tier, the third level, would be using your hand, which is permitted.
Maar dus een vergiet is hetzelfde verhaal. Een vergiet is with big holes, and you use it to separate the sand from the vegetables.
Right.
Maar ook water.
Maar dat is, ik kan het by hand, I can also do it. I put it in my hand and under the tap.
Right.
It's normal, it's not forbidden at all.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
But when you put it in a kind of safe with big holes, it's not a safe.
It's not really a sieve.
No, it's called, in Dutch it's called a vergiet.
Yeah, I have to look what is English.
Strawberries are sold in
punnet
boxes
with
holes in.
You can wash
So
it.
you can wash it.
That's right.
You can wash
That's
it.
right. That's right.
That's the idea.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
use it on Shabbos.
So if you use what you would be doing is you would be using the punnet, we call it, the plastic box, as a form of a sieve. Yeah, as a form of a sieve. You'd be allowing the water to drain through, and it holds back the strawberries.
Yeah. So it's better to Shabbos to take it out and take it in your hand.
I'm just thinking about it.
But what we do, we take the strawberries in our hands and we clean it under the water, under the tap.
It certainly would be
is that better or is it not necessary?
No, I think it would be forbidden to clean it like that. I'm just thinking of a different.
Dat heb je ook met druiven in zo'n bakje. Yeah.
No, okay.
It's the same.
Yeah, it's the same. No, but the strawberries and the grapes, there might be another reason why it could be okay. I have to think about it.
During all the years, you so to say cannot, you cannot. So, and I'm at the moment that I never changed it. Because we hear so many opinions during.
It's easier just to
moet toch door tekst
Ik heb hem hier ergens.
Ja, ik heb het ook, maar.
It's almost definitely, probably, I would say forbidden. I just have a
Colander.
Oh, it doesn't mean anything to me either.
Okay, sorry.
No, when sometimes words in English are just as foreign.
A strainer?
A strainer, yeah, a strainer. Yeah,
a strainer.
Like a pasta strainer. Like a pasta strainer. Use it for pasta. Pasta.
For vegetables, it is the water and you put it in and the water going out.
Yeah. No, the sand. Let's say you prei. Yeah?
Prei,
Prei is.
I know prei is spring onions. Not spring onions.
The green part is always filled with sands and might be also with the
insects.
Tolaim, how you say it?
Insects.
Sorry. Yeah? So therefore you wash it.
Right.
And that's also separated.
Right. When you use the water to wash the thing.
Yeah.
Even if there's no holes, it could be water, could be itself an instrument of separating.
You can do.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a big discussion about it. There's a Mishnah Berurah who says that you can't even wash dirt off something, wash dirt off a vegetable, because you're using the water to do an act of separation. Mishnah Berurah. Yeah. So there's a big discussion about though why not, and what about if it's a small amount of dirt, and what about if it's not necessary. There is a bigger discussion, and if the dirt completely conceals the vegetable, then you should be able to wash it.
And dirt is also considered, like I said, poison.
A mix. No,
Poison is also considered dirt.
it would be a mixture of good and bad.
No, the poison on let's say on a vegetable.
Right.
You wash it off.
Right. For sure, it would be the bad. It'd be the unwanted.
But it's
But there is a big
unseeable.
right. There is a big discussion.
Unseeable.
Is a big discussion about washing vegetables under the tap. Generally speaking, to wash vegetables that aren't so dirty and could be eaten as they are is not a problem. Just because you like it to be a bit cleaner, that's not a problem on Shabbos. There's a discussion about, for example, using liquid to clean lettuce, which where the liquid. Let's see what our Falk actually says. Let's have a quick look.
Maar het is natuurlijk dus daar. Alles is eetbaar.
Ja, maar je wil niet het zand van de trouw eten.
Vergif is ook eetbaar.
Ja, altijd.
Ja, dit is ook een wat is vergif.
Ja, en
Welke vele heen.
nou, laat ik zeggen,
Je eet het toch liever niet.
ja, ja. Nou, noem eens een leuk vergif.
Ja, je hebt in de overproducering is van alles vergif. Zelfs zout.
Maar water ook, dus laten we nemen.
Ja.
Watervergiftiging heb ik ook gezien. Echt vergif, echt vergif. Iemand die
Er zijn dingen voor jou vergif en voor mij niet en andersom.
Using water, if you would put fruit or vegetables into water to allow the water to separate the dirt from the fruit, then that would be forbidden because the water acts like a sieve. It acts like an instrument of separation. There's a discussion whether you can wash it, from the tap, and many poskim say that you can wash a fruit because it's like peeling, and you can do it because it's peeling and as it's taking off, it's the normal way to eat the fruit, and yeah, he says most poskim seem to this. It's generally accepted, like I said, to be able to wash fruit under the tap, fruit and vegetables, but not to use a strainer. Not to use a strainer. You can't use a strainer because that would be boira. Yeah, you can't use a strainer. So let's now go back to this thing we were saying before, the funnel. Yeah, the funnel. So now the question would be, what about using a knife or a fork or a spoon to do boira? Would that be permitted or forbidden? What do I mean by that? What are we asking? Let's say, for example, you have a bowl of soup, and inside the soup is a fly. Okay, there's a fly. We've spoken about the fly, the proverbial fly in the soup, fly in the soup. You want to separate it from the soup. So what do? You get a spoon and you take the fly out from the soup. Would that be, leaving aside the problem of bad from good, because you're taking the bad from the good, that's a problem. Would that be boira? Would it be separating with use of an instrument?
Oh, little children ask don't want to have the meatballs in it.
Right. So you take it out and you lift it with a spoon. Is using a spoon boira bikli? Is it an act of boira with a utensil? That's the question. Because we just said that if it's a utensil, it's designed for boira, it's forbidden min haTorah. If it's not designed, but it assists the act of boira, then it should be forbidden midrabanan. It should be rabbinically forbidden. So can you use a spoon to do boira, to take one thing from another?
But is it also different? Do you do it in the kitchen before it comes to the table, or when you do it on the table?
But here's the thing. If there's three conditions in boira, you're asking good, but we have to remember that there's three conditions that need to apply. One of them is that you take good from bad, and that's true even if you do it by hand. Yeah. It needs to be good from bad. Each condition needs to be together. All three need to occur together. The other condition is you do it close to the meal. That's anyway necessary. And the third condition is that you don't use a utensil for the separation. So here, even if you have the other conditions, even if you take good from bad, for example, you want to eat the carrot and you don't want the soup, so you take the carrot. But is using a spoon a kli, utensil of boira? You'll tell me, well, we always use a spoon. I'm asking you conceptually, thinking in the concept of things, is a spoon a utensil of boira? The spoon assists separation.
Dat je doet. Doe eens.
En dan moet je met je hand
Nee,
eruit
met je
halen.
hand.
You could do it with your hand, yeah.
Ja.
Ja. De
Je
soep
kan
is
soep eten uit een kommetje.
Right.
Ja.
So the halacha says like this. There's actually, in two places, the Mishnah Berurah talks about spoons. And in one place, he seems to say a spoon isn't a kli of boira, it's just a regular kli, it's a regular utensil. And in another place, he says a spoon is a utensil of boira. Now, how do we understand that? The answer is very simple. Let's say, and this was the case in the Mishnah Berurah, they used to have when they milked the cow, there was a jug full of milk, yeah, a flacer full of milk, and the fat would rise to the top. The fat of the milk would go to the top. And they wanted to separate the fat from the milk. Yeah, the fat was used, whatever they want to use it for, to make butter. They would separate the fat so they could make it into butter. And the milk would be used for milk, for cheeses or whatever it is. So what would they do? They would take a spoon and they'd skim with a spoon or with a whatever instrument, they'd skim the fat off the surface of the milk. The Mishnah Berurah says you can't do that with a spoon. It says it's boira b'kli, it's the use of a utensil. Why is that boira b'kli? The answer is because in any instance where the spoon is doing more than what your hand could do, in other words, if I need to take a carrot from the soup, I could do it with my hands. The reason why I don't do it with my hands is very simple, so I don't dirty my hands. So we've invented a nice, polite way to eat, which is called a spoon or a fork or a knife. We have cutlery, and it's a polite way to eat, and it keeps us from getting dirty, and it makes a lot of sense, and it makes it easier to eat. It's an eating instrument.
Het vet van de melk afscheiden ook. Kan ik ook met de hand.
You can't.
Je kan.
You can't.
You can.
The Mishnah says you can't. He says that what happens is that the fat is delicate. The poskim say the fat is very delicate, and when you start using your hand, the fat, sort of, so to speak, it's not a hard lump of fat. It starts to sort of to whatever, and it mixes at the surface. You need a very fine instrument to go in between the layer of fat.
Dan heb je er een beetje erbij. Oké.
You could, but what you're saying is true. If you had a layer of fat at the top and you want to just take the very top layer of it, for sure, but that anyway isn't boira, because then you're taking fat from fat. Then imagine you have a big container and the top 20% is fat and the bottom 80% is milk. And you want to take some fat with your hand, you could, you're right. You could take 10%, you could take half of the fat, which is 10% of the total content. You could take away from the rest of the fat. Now, you could use your hand and go like that and take a blob of fat and put it, it's dirty.
Kippensoep.
Yeah, you could take a blob of fat and put the blob of, and take the blob of fat away from the rest of the fat. But that's not boira, because it's easy to take fat from fat. The challenge is to take the fat from the milk where it floats very gently on the surface of milk. That's the challenge. And to use your hand for that, the hand isn't delicate enough. It's not thin, it's not delicate enough to facilitate that kind of thing. Whereas when you use a spoon, it's much easier. So the spoon assists the act of separation. Whereas when you eat, the spoon doesn't assist the act of separation.
As well.
But in what instance?
A straw. To use it as a kind of funnel, or I said in this to separate the fat. You can use a funnel.
Right, absolutely.
A straw.
Yeah, then that would be used. That would be in that instance, the straw would become an instrument of boira. Whereas drinking from a can of Coke with a straw, of course, is nothing. But in that instance, the straw becomes anything, absolutely anything. Any utensil that's used in a manner, a utensil that's used in a manner to facilitate something that's much more challenging.
Stofzuiger.
What's a stofzuiger?
Nee, maar die mag ik zo
Ja,
wat
maar
blijven.
die mag je niet elektrisch.
Wel, als jij gaat zitten.
Ja.
Nee.
Hoeven. Stofzuiger. Hoeven. Stofzuiger.
Hoeveel is de merknaam, hè?
Ja.
The Hoover.
Hoeven, you know?
Yeah.
That's a stofzuiger.
What's the question?
No, you can't use it on Shabbos.
Take off the fat. I said with
Vacuum, sucking, vacuum,
yeah.
making a vacuum. Yeah, making a vacuum.
Vacuum cleaning by
Yeah, making a vacuum. Yeah, you create a vacuum and then you take it off. Yeah, you suck it up and then you hold your thumb over the edge of the straw. Yeah, absolutely, that would be forbidden. Be separating using a utensil. Again, as long as you're taking the fat from the milk and not fat from fat. If you're taking fat from fat, and you're not doing separate. You're not. The act of boira is a mixture of two different entities. So the fat is, so to speak, mixed with the milk on the surface. If you take a bit of fat from the rest of the fat, that's fine. It's absolutely fine, because you're not.
But you take milk as well as
If
fat.
you take milk as well, it's also fine. It's also fine. Absolutely. It's only that the point of contact between the fat and the milk, and you want to separate the two. That's the act of separation. What about using, for example, a pot? Yeah. So you have, let's say, a pot full of soup with vegetables, and you want to pour out the liquid. You want to pour out the liquid and leave behind the vegetables.
But
so,
even lepel ook.
So what? Yeah, with a lepel, you can use a thing. You can use a spoon. So a lepel, in that sense, take big vegetables out. A soup lepel is effectively just a big spoon. What's the problem? We just said that as long as the act is a general act that could just as well be done manually, but the spoon makes life easier, that's fine. It's an instrument of eating, not an instrument of separating. It's only where it would be very delicate to do it like specifically the milk and the fat. But if you were to now use the pot and you would, so to speak, pour the heavy vegetables here, so you pour slowly and the liquid comes out and the heavy vegetables stay, are you using the pot to separate the liquid from the vegetables? Halacha says, the poskim say you're not. Even though you are using the pot. Using some kind of gravity. The pot itself is not facilitating. The food is in the pot, and when you pour slowly, then the thinner liquids come out quicker. But the pot isn't actually assisting. It's assisting, but it's not actually involved, so to speak, in the separation. However, in other words, it's really you. One second. In other words, I'll clarify that. It's really your hands are the thing that's doing the separation. By you manipulating your hand, it's you who's doing the separation. Yeah, a bit like Rabbi Stanton says, using a peeler, a potato peeler. Rabbi Stanton says that a peeler is a sophisticated knife, and actually the peeler's not doing the separation. You are. It's just a knife blade that, if you know how to use it, it facilitates. It makes easier the separation. But it's you who's doing the separation, not the actual peeler. Now, of course, the peeler is an inanimate object, so is the spoon. But you could have used a regular knife, and you could cut almost, if you were good in the kitchen, you can cut a potato with a regular knife, and it would be almost the same. A peeler is just basically the same thing. It just makes it for simple people, makes it easier.
It's easier.
It's easier. My mother-in-law doesn't bother with peelers. My wife's mother, she stands in the kitchen and does potatoes with a knife like this, almost like that. I don't know how she does. You know, people
But the potatoes you don't do for Shabbos. Maybe an apple.
Yeah, maybe an apple. Right, 100%. I'm just talking about the action. Absolutely right. But
both are edible.
Both are edible. Yeah, but
also the skin of the potato.
Right. But right, absolutely. And there's a discussion. We said that previously. There's a discussion whether the peel of something is called boira or not. We said there is boira with the peel of an onion, for example. It would be called boira, but the reason why you're allowed to do it is because it's the only way to get to the onion is to remove the peel, like the peel of an orange. And any vegetable that the peel is normally removed because it's not edible or less edible would be technically boira, but you could do it close to the meal.
There's also a cultural difference. Because nowadays we eat an apple with the skin, and they used to eat it without the skin.
Yeah, that could be. The Mishnah Berurah does bring, though, from the Pri Megadim that the skin of the apple, because it was eaten even then, it must have been eaten, so it's not called boira. Yeah.
Still, peach we don't eat.
Whisky.
De peer toch niet.
Een peer niet.
Nee, maar bij peer kan je ook eten.
Kan je ook.
Geen probleem.
Een perziken.
Or a kiwi.
Ook niet.
Is ja, in principe kun je aardappelen.
Nou, laten we zeggen, een
sinaasappel.
Think about a kiwi. Yeah?
Die eet je niet.
Die eet je niet. Sinaasappel is goed.
Think about a kiwi. A kiwi.
Kiwi, ja.
Kiwi. What? The peel.
Yeah.
You can, but do peel.
It might be not so tasty.
Right. But but you can eat an orange peel as well.
Yeah.
You make marmalade.
Yeah, right. That's so.
Als die feit zijn, je eet niet zo'n sinaasappelschil, dan is het wel verwerkt op een bepaalde manier. Dan is het...
Ja, goed. Oké, maar dit zijn academische discussies.
Right, exactly. So let's get back to this. So now, when you do the pot and you tilt the liquid, it's your hand doing it. You just do it by maneuvering the pot in a way, like you said, with gravity, then liquid flows. But what happens if you would take the lid of the pot and you would hold the lid like this?
This
like we do with pasta.
This you can use to separate.
Right, exactly. So when you use the lid of the pot, this is what when you use the lid of the pot, and you close the pot like that, and you allow the liquid out, and you're using the pot to separate liquid, then you would be using the pot and the lid, and that would be forbidden midrabanan, because we just said that even if it's not designed for separation, the lid wasn't designed for separation. It just happens to.
But the lid nowadays,
Yeah,
they
they
have
make them with
the
holes.
holes in it.
But it's not for separation, though. It's for the steam.
No, it's for separation.
Is it for separate? I thought it's for steam.
No, it's not for steam. It's to how is it to pour out.
Yeah, you
water.
can buy pasta pots and you have a drainer. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No,
But
you're
then
right.
It's a sieve.
Then it's mamash a sieve. Then it's deraisa. Yeah, absolutely. Then it'll be mamash a sieve. Yeah, 100%.
En is dan de deksel, is die op zich op Shabbat? Nee.
If you make pasta. Yeah.
No, not only for pasta, but for potatoes or beans, whatever.
Zit zo'n deksel overal.
Nee,
Ja,
de
ja.
deksel, in
Ja.
de deksel zit in de rand van die deksels.
Ja, zit lucht om de stoom eruit.
Nee, niet om de stoom eruit te halen. In de deksel vaak zit er ook nog een trechtertje aan de pan. Er zit ook nog een tuitje aan de pan. En als je daar de gaatjes voor zet, dan ga je dus op dat moment gebruik je de deksel als een zeef. Dan is het een zeef geworden.
Right.
Ja.
Niet meer en niet minder. Je gaatjes hè? Maar, en dat is voor boontjes op vrijdagavond is dat natuurlijk wel praktisch. Maar de vraag is, mag je dat dan? Nee dus.
Yeah, we agree. Paul, are you giving a look?
Ja.
Hij kookt niet zoveel.
During the week, not for Shabbos. During the week I cook.
Right.
It's easier.
It's easier.
For
Yeah.
Shabbos no.
I'll tell you one more.
De schuimspaan.
Ja.
Dat is nog problematisch.
What's a schuilschaas?
Schuimspaan is like a sieve. It's a big, I say,
It's a steel.
steel or plastic, whatever, with holes in it, and it's like a sieve.
Then you could, that'll be another instrument that's forbidden. Yeah. Okay, you know what, we'll leave it there. And the next time we'll carry on. It's already,
Okay.
Wat maakt Joden toch een
Schouwig, gentlemen. Schouwig.
Kijk, February.
Als er geen problemen zijn, maken Joden.
One moment. Next year. It's the first Monday, the 16th of February.
Should be good, yeah.
Yeah?
16th of the 2nd.
Okay.
Yeah. Great. Very. Oh, 1 second. Hold on there.
Sorry. Ja, oktober. Ik heb tegenwoordig een of ander plastic ding met gaatjes. Die zet je dus in de pan als je hebt gekookt. En dan gaat
het. Het is
hetzelfde. Ja, kijk, een soort vergiet. Is een soort vergiet. Is het. Ja. Dan een soort vergiet. Want je gaat het vocht gaat dan eruit en de rest blijft over.
En nou is nog een volgende probleem is inderdaad, als je ingebouwd zit in de pan.
Ja.
Je kan je eens voorstellen dat je dus het vergiet ingebouwd zit in de pan.
Ja, dat kunnen we niet op Shabbos doen.
Dat is niet waar, maar je hebt het pot wel op het vuur staan, of op een plaats staan, dat maakt niet uit.
In English?
Sorry, when you have a built-in sieve